The question there, Princess, is why? Why did you create the business in the first place?
I truly feel like it's my purpose to help people.
So once the business is separated from you, what are you then left?
I have nothing going on in your life that led you to do this work in the first place.
So a lot of insecurities, self-worth issues. I was that little fat kid who used to hide behind his mom's leg in the mall. You're always dealing with this, well, who am I?
What's the most common identity lie that high performers struggle with in your experience?
Like my coach said, I'm human and I do have these emotions, and we beat ourselves up so many times about anything negative.
We want to look a certain way to other people around us.
Enough.
I am so excited, ladies and gentlemen. We have Robby D'Angelo on the show. Woo, woo, woo. Robby, can you please give a brief intro for people who don't know who you are yet?
Absolutely. My name's Robby D'Angelo. I work in the technical term is like talent development, human capital. But really what I do is I close the gap between where people are at and where they want to go. And I do that for individuals and also teams inside of corporations and businesses. And I work through a system that I call the Peace Index, where I really honestly look for a state of peace as the North Star with most of the people I work with.
When you say, okay, you look for peace as the North Star, there's like so many juicy things to unpack because from our conversation, a lot of the work that you do to help people who are high performers is identity work, and it's different from all the other identity work coaches out there. So I'm so excited to dive into that. Before we dive into the nitty gritty of your frameworks and the Peace Index and all these things, I'm so curious, what was going on in your life that led you to do this work in the first place?
Man, how much time do you have?
As much as you need.
It's a long story. So I grew up the quintessential overweight, shy kid that, in technical terms, I would have been considered obese. So a lot of insecurities, self-worth issues. I was that little fat kid who used to hide behind his mom's leg in the mall. It was so bad. And then I learned also this performance mindset of validation is only from performance, love is only from performance. So that actually fueled a lot of my early success, external success, I will say. So played college football, got out of college football, had a lot of success there, All-American, one of the finalists for the best players in best players at my position in the country. But I was so empty during that whole process. And then I started like, okay, college football didn't solve it. Let me go do business. Let me, have a weight loss transformation. Let me, find success in social life. I was still chasing all these things, external validation, that drug addiction that we often chase. And only once I hit an absolute rock bottom did I realize, hey, Robby, you've tried everything but fixing the root of the problem, which is yourself. And that led me down a long journey of trying a ton of different modalities before I finally just came in encounter with what authentic faith looks like and living from identity instead of always trying to work for an identity.
Okay, living from identity. Okay, so I think a majority of people listening to this are high performers, are people in online sales, online coaching, just this space that rewards high performance. And typically it's like we think that, yeah, our identity is around our numbers, like duh, like our results, that's all that can really speak for us as far as success in this space. That's what we think. I'm sure we'll feel differently at the end of this episode, but was there a moment where you realized I'm chasing something, but I'm not living I don't have peace? Like, was there a moment you realized that?
Yeah, it's like a lot of people. I would feel validated. I would feel worthy when I hit the numbers, when my business adds another comma, when I get to speak on stage in front of thousands of people. Like, I would feel validation and worth in those moments. but it would never go home with me.
Mm-hmm.
I would never wake up with it the next day. And I just got tired of, and that's why I called it drug addiction. When we're chasing performance, when we're chasing external validation, self-worth externally, it really does start to feel like a drug addiction where if you're not getting that next high, you're at a low. And that low oftentimes comes when you're by yourself. And let's be honest, the most important thing in the world is the story you tell yourself when you're by yourself, what you think about yourself when you're by yourself. And are those numbers really there in those moments? Oftentimes they're not. And that rock bottom for me is I was like, okay, something's got to change. This feeling of emptiness and this void that never seems to go away. Why? What causes this just existential crisis that I feel like I'm always riding a roller coaster in?
I'm really curious, at that time when you had that rock bottom, did you have a relationship with Christ yet or not yet?
It was very theoretical at that point. It was very head knowledge. It never made that full 18-inch drop at that point. I grew up a Christian, but it was always like, I'm a Christian, but I wasn't really practicing Christianity. I would, read my devotional, which had a fun Bible verse and a motivational pep talk in it. I would listen to a great, motivational Bible sermon. And I was using it more, once again, for these little dopamine hits of, hey, Robby, you can keep going. Hey, you got this. Than really encountering what genuine faith looks like. So when I hit my rock bottom moment, it absolutely pushed me from dopamine faith to genuine, abiding, surrendering faith.
I love that dopamine faith. I've never heard that way. I've never heard it phrased that way before. I like that a lot. I can relate where it's like we kind of, yeah, we see it as this, it's up and down, up and down, up and down, just like our emotions and our dopamine throughout the day.
Yep.
So something that really stood out to me when we had our initial conversation was this idea of a Christ-centered identity and doing the work from that place instead of where I guess a lot of other secular coaches, it's just mindset. So when did the idea of Christ-centered identity become something that was life-changing not only for you, but for the people that you help as well? Like, when did you start integrating that?
This real change happened, I would say, about 5 years ago now, when, like you said, a lot of the mindset coaching I was even doing was, hey, let's work on your identity, let's work on your motivation and your habits and all these things. And for me, the thing about that is it's never grounded in truth. You're always dealing with this, well, who am I? I'm like, the things I do, yeah, that's what I do, but who am I on the other side of the things that I do outside of the labels that the world puts on me? And I was always meandering in and out of different identities because it never was grounded in truth. Once I really said, okay, who did God design me to be? What does that look like? What did God, in his knitting me in my mother's womb, what did that actually create me to be? And I started really just grounding myself in an undeniable truth that when I'm looking, a lot of my background is neuroscience and biology, even evolutionary psychologies, to really understand the human animal. I'm looking at all these different thoughts and I'm realizing oh, that's just who God designed us to be. And it's actually backed up in the Bible. So why don't I just go to the source and start from the source? That way I can operate from who God created me to be, form my identity from that, and then let that be the foundation from which everything else flows out of.
I like what you said about going to the source. And this is actually a big reason why I'm bringing on a lot more believers in Christ onto the podcast, because the word is seriously a cheat code. And what I notice about us humans, I did this too, is that we will do everything to find the answer, but go to the source. we'll do ayahuasca, we'll do
Yeah.
like all the retreats, we'll do all of the new age things, but like literally people will spend, me as well, thousands and thousands of dollars on all these different things, but then we still feel like there's something missing because all of those things are surface level. We still at the end of the day are left with our own thoughts. And if we don't go to the source, then all we have to trust is our thoughts, which is so dangerous, right? So I'm curious about the peace index because you teach that peace it's a multiplier. Can you just get into all of the nitty gritty of that stuff so I can understand like just the conversation that we had was so impactful. I want to like share the sauce with the audience. Yeah.
And to go back to the point you're just making, C.S. Lewis talks about that void that we're trying to fill in this world of searching for all the hedonistic things or all the hacks. That void that we just never seem to fill is actually a sign we weren't made for this world. We were made for something more. And I think that's why we chase all those things, all the plant medicines, all the Huberman hacks, all the David Goggins force, your way through life. We chase all those things and we still feel empty on the other side of it. It's because that's not who we were created to be. But getting into the peace index, in my world, I coach on a lot of things that are hard to track. It's hard to track your motivation level. It's hard to track emotional intelligence, even though we really try to, but you can't track stuff like that unless you're actually measuring it in the fire, in the storm, which is why I laugh at so many personality tests. But when I'm really looking at how somebody's actually performing in their life, I'm looking for measurable metrics that I can track to say, okay, we're off here, we're off there. So with the peace index, that's really what we're doing. And we're measuring things like your ability to sleep, your ability to make calm, rational decisions, your ability to wake up and not be stressed. Like, do you wake up in a state of like, okay, I'm excited about the day? And the reason I call it a performance multiplier is when we look at the actual research, so not from me, but from the actual cognitive research that's out there, when you're stressed, you're 40% more likely to make a bad decision. Every day that you're operating in stress, you on the average, you're 1% less motivated than you were the day before. So just think about taking that out long term. Most people, that's why their work or their business goes from passion to prison, is because this thing that they were so excited about doing, this new thing that they saw, this like fun, just loving thing that they're going to get involved in, they become so obsessed with it that it just becomes this parasite sucking the life out of them. So as I'm looking at performance and getting people to a higher state, I'm like, okay, if we can get to a state of peace and have that just be the baseline, right? Not operating in negativity, not operating in fight or flight, stress, but just state of peace. Yes, joy and excitement are on the other side of that, but just state of peace. That is a foundation where you're calm, you're relaxed, you're strategic. When you think about it, if you're stressed, you're not strategic. You're putting out fires instead of logically thinking through, okay, what's best for my business? What's best for my people? So I'm looking at getting people into a state of peace because I've had the fortune of working with special forces, pro athletes, people in very, very high stress environments, and even myself playing college football. One of the things that they preach in most sports is practice makes perfect. One of the reasons they always preach that is the more times we practice something, when we get into the game's actually easy because I've done this so many times. The world slows down. I'm just in a state of instinct, not even having to really think because this is so second nature to me. And when I was playing college football, I observed something really interesting. When we would have like a pregame speech or a speaker come in and talk to us for a game, interestingly enough, the higher emotionally we got before the game, often the worse we played, because we were in this state of high motivation, high energy, but we weren't in a logical, strategic frame of mind to actually think through how best to play our position. And that's why special forces and pro athletes, you see them, they almost look calm. It's weird. I've been around special forces guys, and they can have bullets flying by their head, but they're literally just like having a calm conversation. And for the average person, like, how do they do that? It's because they've practiced this so much, and they've learned this amazing term called equanimity, which is your ability to be the calm in the storm. And that's why I try to get people operating from peace. And what they see is they can track their metrics along with their peace index, and they really will see that peace is a performance multiplier.
Can you share an example of a business decision that was completely shifted once it went through a proper filter, as opposed to like stress or like
Yes.
go?
The example I give most people to make it personable, in the emotion versus logic spectrum, is just personally think back to the 3 worst decisions you've ever made in your life. The 3 decisions with the highest regret, highest consequences.
Yes.
Where were you at on that emotion to logic spectrum? Chances are you were very high emotion. And to give you a recent example from business, one of the areas I work in is mergers and acquisitions. And I was working with a company, getting them ready to acquire another company. And when we first said, hey, to acquire this other company, it's going to cost this. And immediately, oh no, we can't do that. We don't have that much capital to spend right now. No, deal is dead. And we're like, okay, let's think through this. We got back into a parasympathetic state of calm, peaceful logic, and we just simply looked at the numbers, because spending a lot of money can be highly stressful. But if you look at spending a lot of money versus the ROI it's going to create, oh, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense to do that. Even though the fear is there, you're like, yeah, that's scary to expend that much money. But day one value created through arbitrage is actually 4x. Okay, you know what? Let's do that. And it was so like, I immediately had to practice myself, because when they said, no, we're not spending that, I'm thinking the deal's dead. I'm like, oh crap, all this work we did to make this deal happen, now I'm not going to get paid either. On the other side of that, thinking through that, oh, you know what? This actually makes sense. Whew, cool. I just had to calm myself down to then calm them down, to look at it logically, and said, yeah, this is actually a really good decision to make.
It's same thing on sales calls too. Like when a prospect is like freaking out about maybe a high investment,
Yeah.
it's like, just if you just slow down and filter it and get to the core of like, at the end of the day, what's the ultimate goal and does this help you get there? It's like the ROI, regardless of what you're selling, even if what you're selling is like fitness coaching, you know?
The peace is the foundation we operate from. So I've got to get you into a state of peace first. And then like, okay, we're good. Now, how do we make this decision? So then from the peace, I then can say, okay, this is how we think through a decision. So it's kind of like a step 1, step 2 kind of thing.
When I think about peace, I think for me as someone who I check the boxes of high performer, very aspirational, want to achieve lots of things, I struggle. The moments I struggle in the most are when there are big decisions to make. Sometimes I have decision fatigue, or I do get overwhelmed because so many people are looking to me. So can you share that decision-making framework that, you initially shared with me? Because it's so simple, yet golden.
Yeah. So the reason that peace is so important there is because, yes, you make better decisions in a calm state. We all know that to be true. So the peace is more of a state change to get you primed to make a decision. And then once we look at making a decision, there's a couple of different decision frameworks I use depending on how complex the decision is. But really the easiest way with probably 98% 8% of decisions you make in your life is, okay, I'm good. Now, who am I? What's my identity? What would that identity do right now? And to take that just like one step further, it's what would the best version of my identity, who is the person I'm trying to become? What would they do right now? Not my feelings and emotions right now, not my stress and scarcity right now, but because I was able to get into a peaceful state and think logically and strategically, that person that I'm trying to become or the business that I'm trying to create, what would they do right now? And then you've got to go from decision to action as quickly as possible. Because the longer that gap between this is what my identity would do to taking an action, the more room you're allowing second guessing, fear, or even like rumination on problems to kick in, and it'll prevent you from taking your highest and best action. So I really look at a decision velocity of going from peace, information gathering, right? Because you need to do that. And about 80% is optimal for making a decision. So 80% information. So it's peace, information, identity, decision, action. And the better you get at going through those steps, the faster it's going to happen. And it's strategically faster, not haphazardly faster. It's a way of making the highest and best decision as quickly as possible to keep momentum going. And the reason I also say 80% information, I actually once again learned this from Special Forces, is you're never going to know 100% information, which is what kills so many really intellectual people, is they need all the control. They need all the information before they make a decision. But oftentimes we can get to about a threshold of about 80. We can make a decision. And by making that decision, we're going to gather more information to either course correct, make a better decision next time, or to know we made a good decision. But I'm looking for about 80% because I need to make a decision. My team's depending on me. My business is depending on me. So I'm going to make a decision and look, okay, this is what happened. Good, or we need to correct. But I need to make that decision so I can gather the information to keep going. So that's why I look at that 80% threshold to go from decision to action as quickly as possible.
That's beautiful. I mean, if the special forces are using that 80% as the, okay, this is all we're going to get, then anyone on a sales call can be okay when making a financial decision.
They're making life or death decisions on 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said it's peace, identity, decision, action, right? I want to like zero in on the identity piece here because it's interesting to me. So what's the most common identity lie that high performers struggle with in your experience?
Enough. I think it's not just high performers. I think it's just the human condition of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. Everyone has like their own distinct flavor of what the lack of whatever their enough is, but we all struggle with some sort of insecurity around enough, and we think we're alone in it. And I'm here to tell you, I've been around and talked to a lot of people who have done really well, and I've yet to met one of them that wasn't a complete sociopath, because that does exist, that didn't have some type of enough that they were battling with. I even had one executive I was coaching. He was very successful, like multiple businesses, very successful, yet he would cancel meetings because he didn't feel comfortable in his clothes. So we all have some kind of enough that we're struggling with. I mean, even professional speakers still struggle with like imposter syndrome of being on stage. And it is a lie you tell yourself, because yes, there may be like a skill gap there where some things you need to get better at, 100%. But you have the capacity and the capability to do that. Yes, there are limitations. I'll never be an NBA basketball player, let's be honest. But I have a capacity and a capability to get better at whatever I'm willing to put in the work and sacrifice for. But a lot of times, because that enough story, we just don't believe that that's possible for us.
Okay, this reminds me of something. So this morning, I was reading Matthew chapter 25, where he talks about stewarding the talents that God gave us. And I was reflecting on this because what you said about the MBA made me think of it. Because this morning I was reflecting on, oh man, we're always, I'll speak for myself right now, always pushing for more, more, more. I need more. I need more reach. I need more followers. I need to reach more people. I need to help more people. I need more clients. I need more calls on my calendar. I need more, more, more. And that's constantly what I'm on the hamster wheel to achieve is more. And I think like this is a great thing because I want to help more people. I want to just increase in terms of the purpose. But what I learned in Matthew chapter 25 about the talents is like God is saying, steward what you have right now instead of just focusing on more and more and more. Steward what you have right now. Steward what God has given you. Prove to God that you can actually do very well with what you have before shooting for more. And I don't know, for me, that brought me peace. That's like, oh, actually, I'm by being on the hamster wheel, God's not asking me to constantly shoot for more. He's asking me to steward what I have. And I think that could be helpful for people who are constantly on the hamster wheel, constantly shooting for more, where it's never enough. So here's a question I have for you. As the expert on this, where do you see the biggest gap between who people think God wants them to be and who he's actually calling them to be?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind there as you're going through that is think back to the life of Jesus. He first, in his adult ministry, he first comes on the scene. Very first thing he does is get baptized. In that moment, so think about it, he hasn't performed one miracle. He doesn't have one disciple. He literally is in day one startup business mode, right? He gets baptized, and what does his father say? This is my son who I'm well pleased. You haven't performed one thing yet, and I'm proud of you. I think that's one of the biggest things, and that's why I always preach work from identity, is because that is your from identity, is I'm proud of you and who you are outside of all the performance metrics. And that is a lie that we tell ourselves. That being said, I'm also a really big fan of the quote, proud but never satisfied. So I'm proud of who I am, the man that I've become today and the way I'm living my life, but that doesn't mean I can rest. That doesn't mean that the job is finished. We run the race to win. That is in the Bible. So you can be proud of who you are and the person that you're becoming, really, because we're all in this becoming journey, but you can still run the race to win. And you can still want to have a bigger following. You can still want to accomplish all these things. You're just doing it from a place of abundance versus a place of needing these things to justify your worth and your, to fill voids like a lot of people do. And once you start operating from that identity of who God created you to be as a son or daughter in the kingdom, that he created you perfect the way you are, and he's proud of you, then you can go do good works, because that's also what he created you to do. Because literally in Genesis, you were created to have dominion. You were created in the image of a creator, which makes you a creator, to then go have dominion. So that's why this identity piece is so important, is because you start understanding these things. Okay, he loves me. I can make mistakes and he's still going to love me. I mean, even David, who committed adultery and had someone killed, God said, this is a man after my own heart. Not because of things he did, but because of the way he lived his life. So knowing that we have that part of our identity, but then we're also created to run the race to win, to create, to have dominion, to help other people, for service. We're created for all these other things. okay, that's who I'm literally in my DNA designed to be. Now it's just up to me to accept that and fully live that out in my life.
It's it's so crazy because most of us we've all heard and understand that we are made perfect in God's image and that he loves us no matter what. But why do you think it's so hard for us to just surrender to that truth?
I had a coach of mine tell me, he was like, Robbie, you know what your problem is? I was like, look, I know a lot of my problem, but I'm sure you're going to tell me something else. Come on. He said, your problem is you're human. And I was like, yeah, you're right. As humans, you do live in this duality of who God created you to be and your flesh and the world and your insecurities and these crazy things called emotions. You're always living in this duality, and most of us look at that duality as disconnect and what separates us from God instead of looking at that duality and be like, oh, you know what? This is what God created, because that duality is there for a reason. And it's there so I can chase God. It's there because I know that I have fallen short. Sin just literally means to miss the mark. I know that I'm going to miss the mark every single day, but it's in that void where I can get better. And one of the things I talk about with people is the paradox of progress. And what I mean by that is that void is really your potential of where you're at right now versus who you can become. And the crazy thing about the paradox of potential is right now today, here is where you're at, here's your potential. And as you get better, so does your potential. And that gap is never going to close no matter how good you get. And I love knowing that no matter how good I get at something, I can always get better. So that duality is there. It's really just a change of awareness and a shift of how I'm looking at it that can either be motivation or it can be a grave. And you have to make that decision of how you're going to look at it.
I think I just had a crazy unlock. Like okay. So I think in listening to you speak, I just realized one of the reasons why we do struggle to surrender to that truth is because all the work we're doing, that gap you're talking about, will never close it, is because we're working so hard to hit that next level, not for God, but because we're concerned about what other humans think. Because if we were doing it for God, we would understand that, like, he's good, he's chilling, he's not expecting us to, like, get to 1 million followers or grow our business to 1 million a month. He's not concerned about that. We are, and we want to look a certain way to other people around us in business and life.
He's concerned with you being a good steward of the gifts you've been given, because they're called gifts because they're meant to be given away. So he's concerned with, hey, I made you this way, be a good steward of that. And what you're saying about this whole pleasing people is you're literally trying to please people who crucified a perfect man.
Literally.
So if they're going to crucify a perfect man, do you ever think you're going to fully meet the expectation of other people?
No. That's why it's never enough. Never. No matter how many accolades, awards, speaking gigs, followers, it's never enough. Because there's always someone out there who has more. And if you're measuring up against people, then you're measuring yourself against the next person, you know? Like someone who wants to grow on YouTube, for example, is always going to measure themselves to Mr. Beast.
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, dang. So it's wild. Yeah, we're out here like literally digging our own graves. But this is what happens. This is why we need to like consistently take in truth. And it goes back to what you said about we're not made for this world. Is that what you said earlier?
Yep.
That's it. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing I want to like hit home with people is I don't want this like to be a negative thing. And we can beat up a lot of our perceptions of the world and the stories that we're telling ourselves, we can really feel a lot of guilt and shame. I'll just give you a real life example. A couple of years ago, I was dealing with some serious health challenges, and I was in and out of the hospital for months and just never knowing if I'm going to get better. All the doctors were telling me, I don't know. And my high performance brain is trying to control and fix everything when literally completely out of my area of expertise, medical, I know nothing. And I'm getting so angry. I'm taking it out on everybody. Why aren't you giving me answers? Why aren't you fixing this? This is your job. I'm paying you a lot of money to do this. And I'm sitting there just drowning in anger. And finally, I just had to let go. I had to fully surrender and be like, okay, God, I'm obviously here for a reason because you told me, and you're incapable of lying, that everything works for the good. So I'm going to trust that you're going to do good in whatever this is. And when I let go, I just had this supernatural peace fall over me because I was trying to control the uncontrollable. And I let go, peace fell over me, and I started getting out of that. Things started getting better. And I say that because we do struggle a lot with these things. I mean, look, I'm a performance coach and I'm beating myself up because of how angry I am. I'm like, Robby, you're supposed to know the tools to overcome this anger and be in a state of peace. Why aren't you doing it? And I was beating myself up about it, but I'm like, oh yeah, like my coach said, I'm human and I do have these emotions, and we beat ourselves up so many times about anything negative. I love how the Bible just corresponds with science, and they really do go together a lot more than people think. One of the things about science and neuroscience they teach you is your brain has a 7x magnification on negative versus positive. So it looks at negative information 7 times stronger than positive information. Why? Because your brain's there to keep you alive. It's not there for thriving. So it's always going to look at negative information stronger because it thinks it's a threat. Understanding that, that's why you have to be very intentional about the work, about grounding yourself in truth and identity and what's important to you, your why, your priorities, because your brain's always going to naturally go to the negative. So you have to work 8 times harder to get back to the intentional positive, understanding that you're going to miss the mark and you're going to a lot. But that's just part of this human experience, and that's why we can have grace for others, is because we know how crazy our own minds are, and we know how short that we all fall, which is why I can have that for other people, because I know how screwed up I am.
So when someone starts to anchor their identity in a more healthy way, what do you notice changes first? Like mindset, habits, relationships?
It's honestly, you just start noticing it in decisions they're making. And with a lot of identity work, identity really is your decision-making filter. It's the filter you pass all your decisions through. And yes, it is a constant work, because as you're doing identity work, as emotions come in, the stronger the emotion, the further you're going to get from your identity and the further you're going to get from making those smart decisions. So there's always that work of getting back to peace so you can operate from identity. But you just notice it like there's small decisions of going to the gym, or instead of lashing out, I'm going to ask questions first. Instead of staying late tonight, you know what? My identity is as a loving husband. This will be here tomorrow. Let me go home early tonight and go love on my family and take care of this tomorrow. You just see like these little small decisions that start changing. And what's beautiful about identity influenced decision making is you very quickly start seeing evidence that, oh, this works. Oh, I'm actually feeling better about myself, and the people around me are responding to me better. Okay, I should probably keep doing this. So you get a really quick feedback loop once you start making those little small different decisions according to your identity, which just reinforces this is how you should operate. And it creates that momentum to keep doing it.
I know there's always that person out there who listens to these kinds of podcasts and they're like, I want to see a quick win.
Yeah.
So for someone out there who's really feeling maybe stressed, overwhelmed, a lot on their plate, and they want to see a quick win without doing lots of deep work,
Yeah.
what advice do you have for them?
When you're in those situations, create some distance. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, gave the greatest definition of free will that I have ever been able to really wrap my head around. And he basically just defines free will as the distance between stimulus and response. That distance right there is your capacity to have free will. Most people have zero free will, if we're honest. Something happens and they just react. So if you want to create a quick win, one of the very first things you can do to start understanding peace and understanding identity and kind of understanding how this framework works is put in a small tool to create some distance there. It may be grounding. I have some of my clients literally, if they get stressed out, go outside, stand in the grass for 5 minutes, and then come back inside and make the decision. I have
The
some
literal touch grass.
literally
Okay.
grounding. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I have some of my clients, they'll have like a totem where they'll touch that just to remind them, okay, I'm safe. Maybe it's box breathing, which is another technique that comes from special forces to really pull back in your central nervous system to say, hey, I am safe, I am in control. Put in some type of tool to just slow down to come back into the present moment, not in this temporal dislocation of thinking too far in the future or dragging the past into this. Come back to the present, come back to a grounded center place, and then make a decision. And this is literally nothing more than like a breathing technique or standing in grass or touching something real that you can just ground yourself in. But that small tool interjected in between stimulus and response, you'll start to see the power in slowing down and being more intentional and being more present.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, no good decisions are ever made when you're rushed, right? So,
No, that brings up, I love the saying, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And thinking through that, a lot of business owners have a big problem with the word slow because they think slow doesn't equal revenue, doesn't equal closing sales. And, I do understand, I've been in sales where I understand the part on like striking while the iron's hot, taking advantage of people at a heightened emotional state where you want to go ahead and close because of that. I understand those thought processes, but what I mean by slow is smooth and smooth is fast is let's slow down to make a good decision and do the little things right. And then as we get good at making the right decision and doing the little things right, what you notice is I stop having to go back and clean up mistakes. I stop having to go back and fix things, and I can now speed up my entire life because I'm slowing down to do things right on the front end. And that creates a smoother life, and that less friction is what creates more speed on the back end. So I understand the paradox in saying that, but a lot of times I got to get people to slow down so we can reduce friction, which then increases speed.
yes, 100%. Something I always say, as I'm a broken record on this with my students, is as the leader, you're in charge of slowing down the other person's heart rate, like especially at the end of the call when they're freaking out and they're in fight or flight. And so by slowing down yourself, you slow down your speech, they slow down all of the physiological things that are going on, and they're able to actually make a decision, and they can still close with you on the call if you slow down. So yes, this all ties in. Can I do some rapid fire questions?
Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So respond with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. So who inspires you the most?
Jesus. Honestly, I know it's cliche. Jesus, Marcus Aurelius, And there's so many people that inspire me, from literally my pastor and the way he interacts with the world, my best friend, how he's able to stay balanced in his emotions. And yeah, I find inspiration everywhere.
What's a question that you wish people would ask you when you go on podcasts?
Hmm. What's the most important thing?
Okay, what do you mean? What's important in what way?
Oftentimes, we're always looking for the tips and tricks and how to do this and how to do that. And instead of looking at what am I ultimately trying to do here? What's the end of this road? What is the most important thing that I'm trying to live my life for? And a lot of times we're trying to solve problems based upon current realities of what we think how the world operates right now, instead of saying, okay, what's the most important thing I'm trying to do with my life? Let me operate towards there instead of this current story that I'm telling myself.
What's the most important thing for you then?
To finish well and to live a life that I can look back on and die empty with a lot of pride on how I lived. And that's loving relationships, being in service, just leaving, as cliche as it is, just leaving the world a better place by every relationship that I've had, because relationships are the most important thing in life. They're not your sales numbers. They're not your metrics. They're not your bank account. It's relationships. And that's what the science proves. So I'm trying to live a life that has the most healthy, loving, positive relationships as possible.
Yeah, that really is the most important thing, which, oh my gosh, that's a that's a pain point for me. Like relationships, like all of the things. I live a very solo life. Like I love my family, love my parents. I mean, but I I've made my business my life. It's like my everything, and I I'm definitely lonely when I'm not working, which is why I work so much.
The question there, Princess, is why? Why did you create the business in the first place?
I created it because I truly feel like it's my purpose to help people to make life-changing income through sales as that vehicle. Because I was able to do it for myself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've cracked the code I must share.
But why do you want to be
That
successful?
See, that's the part that ties into the unlock I had, which is like I always told myself I'm doing it for God. I don't know.
You're my challenge there is you're living on the surface instead of living deeper.
I mean, so what would living deeper look like though?
What I mean is a deeper life. What in your
Oh
life
God.
is truly fulfilling? What in your life is truly bringing you not wins, but deep joy? And also, what are you creating that's going to last past business?
So that's the thing. My answer to that, I don't have an answer to that. So that's why my business is my baby. It's my child. It's my legacy. It's the thing that will live beyond me. But again, it doesn't, I sometimes, so this weekend, what I've been reflecting on is maybe I just have to make a choice. I'm going to choose to be alone forever and build this big, beautiful, juicy empire. But everything has pros and cons, and I've been grappling with that. Do I just make the choice? But then I'm like, well, no, because then I'm not surrendering to whatever God wants, it'll happen. But also it's like this fight. It's always this push and pull of like surrender, but then I still keep trying to control. But then I feel like I'm doing it for my feelings. The control is to manage my feelings and emotions on it.
Well, I'm laughing over here because of semantic wordplay that you just played with me. Because I didn't ask what's going to outlast you. I asked what's going to outlast the business. So once the business is separated from you, what are you then left?
I have nothing outside
Would
of it.
you see that that potentially could be a problem?
Yeah, but as long as I have my business, I'm good. I mean, no one's going to come snatch it away from me.
No,
So,
no. But Your business is not there during the darkest hours. Your business is not there when you're not working. Your business is not there when you're in a state of, I say relationship, but we can find business as a band-aid for the void of relationship, but a business relationship will never give you the deep satisfaction of personal, intimate relationship. Yet, if we stay busy enough and we're having wins, we stay busy enough and we're wrapping our every moment and thinking about business, we're not having to think about the loneliness on the other side of what's outside of business. Business, and even this is biblical, business is the tool that we're able to live life. It is what you're supposed to shepherd in life, yes, but it is the tool that allows us to really live a deep, fulfilling life. And yes, you're called to work. That is biblical for you to work and work hard. Even the Proverbs 31 woman worked hard, but she worked hard so she could have a healthy relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Are you open to opening that can of worms? Because this is something that I don't get a lot of opportunity to discuss with people who are people of faith, but also in business as well.
I love the
So,
relationship conversation because, like
okay,
I said, it's the most important thing in your life. Yeah, and a lot of times we avoid talking about it.
okay. Let's open that can then. Okay, so I do want to be a Proverbs 31 woman, comma, and I run a business, and with me being a workaholic, I guess, for lack of a better term, with my business being my life, I'm literally putting myself in a position where I can't be a Proverbs 31 woman. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, just I can't be a good biblical wife because I
You're married to business.
I would exactly, I'm married to the business and to Jesus, of course, but you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What that comes down to, honestly, is priorities. So you just said you're married to Jesus and business, but my question in return is which one takes ultimate authority?
It is Jesus is number one.
Okay.
Um, it's all so most of my time is literally spent on business and with Jesus. And then I look at like dating as a distraction. I'm not even dating right now. I haven't been for months. It's a distraction. Um, and so that's what I mean. Like there's for in all these different ways, I'm literally putting myself in a position where I can't be a Proverbs 31 woman. It's really interesting. I just feel like I can't have it all. That's the thing that plagues, I know, so many women, and could be a lot of women in sales and business as well. It's like we feel like we can't have it all because one is a distraction from the other.
In that frame, yes. If your ultimate priority is business, then anything other than business would be a distraction from. The reason I asked you which one had authority was in putting business at the highest priority, you're saying, hey, God, I agree with most of the things you say, just not everything. And you're not my ultimate authority because I am not actually surrendering to all the truths, just the truths that I like and support my thesis of how I'm living my life. It's almost confirmation. You're looking for confirmation bias in the gospel instead of taking the gospel in its totality and saying, okay, that is how I'm going to design my life. Now let me look at the areas of my life and align them with the gospel.
Okay, I love that you caught that with trying to find that line. Okay. Okay, yes. But then this is where I get confused. And I know it's because I'm just letting my thoughts kind of lead the way here, but I also found a lot of peace in First Corinthians chapter, it's either 6 or chapter 7, where Paul talks about, he says, if you don't, if it's okay, he basically says it's okay to not get married. And I was like, really? But also I want to, but also it's okay. Okay, so that's what made me start to think maybe I should just make a choice to just not, because he says it is okay. Um, it's not a sin to not get married. And if he also said that if you don't, can I grab my Bible real quick to read it just so I'm not like fumbling?
Go ahead.
Can I go grab it?
Pull
Okay,
it out.
1 sec.
Let's go.
Okay. I know it's one of these bookmarks on top. So here we go. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 33. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. In the same way, and this is verse 34, in the same way, a woman who is no longer married or has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and spirit. I'm like, this is great. This is great for me. I love this for me. And then let's skip over to verse 39. He says, a wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. If her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, but only if he loves the Lord. But in my opinion, verse 40 gave me so much peace. But in my opinion, it would be better for her to stay single. And I think I'm giving you counsel from God's Spirit when I say this. I was like, let's go, Paul. Like, all right, confirmation bias. Let's go. Like, but what are your thoughts on that? Because I really struggle, like, going back and forth now.
Okay, this is, of course, my own opinion here. When Paul's talking about that, he is literally talking about those who are devoting their life to serving the Lord. So this is where a lot of like Catholicism, they talk about this with priests, right? Monks, they don't want to have any wife, any children, because that's going to remove them time, energy, and effort from devoting to the Lord, from being in Scripture, to studying Scripture, and to helping people. So that's definitely like one of the viewpoints that I've read about that Scripture is it's so you can devote all your time, energy, and effort to serving the Lord. So there is a piece of that. And I'm not saying that, yes, every single person walking the earth has to be married, has to have an intimate relationship. That's just, of course, that wouldn't be me going along with the Scripture. But I am speaking to 99.99% of the people who a loving, intimate relationship is what you were created to do on this earth, and everything else is serving that, and the totality of that serving the Lord. Paul also talks about, hey, if you're really struggling with lust, get married. Don't be single. So yeah, when Paul's talking about these issues, it really does go back to, okay, what are your priorities? What were you put on this earth to do? And to me, if I'm being frank with you, when I hear you look for this confirmation bias, my immediate question is, where's the trauma that is looking for this confirmation bias?
You're good. You're good, Robby. You're really good. You're good at your job. My answer is, this is definitely coming from a place of, I am effing tired of being heartbroken.
Okay, there we go. There's my answer.
Tired. Yeah, I'm tired. So don't make me cry. Yeah, that's the pain point for me, because I'm 29, but I feel like I'm old. And I'm tired. I feel like I'm at a point where I do need to just make a decision, just for the sake of my emotions and mental well-being, make a decision one way or the other. Either I'm just going to choose singleness, or I'm going to choose to, I guess, surrender, and whatever happens, happens. I don't like the whatever happens, happens. I don't like that.
Why do you have to make a decision?
It's all about managing my feelings. It's like, because it feels more empowering if I choose singleness forever. It's like, it's my choice. So I won't be as sad about it because I chose it, as opposed to like, it just didn't happen and I want it to happen. And then I feel like, that makes it sad.
Yeah, you're being risk averse right now, and you're playing it safe And I'm pretty sure that's not biblical, ma'am. It definitely,
Yeah.
was about 365 times says do not fear and to trust and to surrender. The reason I challenge you on the making a decision is I do get asked this by a lot of people. And the answer I always give is you're told you don't know. That's literally what God tells you. You do not know the plans I have for you. Your job is just to, like we talked about, be a good steward, be as Christ-like as possible, give life 100%. Like your job is just to follow the gospel. That is your job. Anything that happens outside of that is outside of your control. And the reason I challenge you on that is what happens if you put this label on yourself and then you meet Mr. Wonderful, but because you have this label, you're not even going to see him. You meet the guy that God said, here, princess, this guy. But because no, I'm a nun now, I'm celibate, and I'm going to focus on my business, you're like, no. What did you just pass on? That's a fear of mine. So what I find solace in, what I find peace in is I'm going to live my life to the best that I possibly can, understanding that I can only control myself. So I'm just going to work on being the best version of myself and showing the best version of myself to other people. That's my work. Whatever happens outside of that, that's God's work. My job is just to be the man he created me to be in the fullest capacity I can possibly do it. And I'm okay with that.
That's good. Yeah, it all ties into surrender. It's like
It's so
because I
hard.
make it meet. Yeah, it's like if I surrender and then another year goes by, and it doesn't happen, I don't meet my person. It's like, well, I make it mean things about me. It's this constant like tug of war internally of like trusting God's word that it doesn't mean anything about me and that he's definitely protecting me. And I can look back in hindsight and see that he's definitely protecting me in so many ways. And I'm so grateful for that. It doesn't change the fact that on the weekends when I push myself to not work, I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just so sad and lonely. So,
That's why I
there's
asked that
that.
question earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to that is one of the hardest things about the human condition is that struggle, that paradox of control and surrender. Because I struggle bad with this. Like I just told you my hospital story of me trying to search for some type of control, which I had none. We do struggle with that and even think about it through the lens of the gospel. What am I actually supposed to take charge of, have dominion over, and do, versus what should I just surrender to God? So even there's gray area and not clear black and white answers, which our human brain absolutely hates. But that's also the importance of staying in the scripture, staying intentional about learning the truth, because that's really where your discernment comes from. Discernment is nothing more than filtering your decisions through the gospel and the Holy Spirit. So, yes, there's a lot of things that are unanswered questions. The verse that comes to my mind is, I forgot exactly what number it is in Proverbs, but the Lord is a lamp to your feet. And the reason it says that, and actually in Hebrew, lamp is the word ner, N-E-R. And what the ner was a small little oil lamp that literally was bright enough to show you your next step. So as we're in our human brain and our human emotions, needing to know the plan and needing to know, like, where does all this take me? God's saying, no, I'm going to be a lamp to your feet. I'm going to show you the next step. So just trust me to take that next step, and I will work everything out for your good. But you've got to trust me and just take that next step. So as even somebody like in high performance, okay, I just got to take the next action to the best of my ability in my identity. And then if I do that, he's going to show me the next step. And if I just keep doing that over and over and over again, I'm going to get where he wants me to be. And that is the highest and best life he has created for me. But it's just taken in that next step. But it's so hard to stay in the reality and in the present to just take that next step he wants you to take.
Okay. So if I had to summarize advice for someone who's in my shoes, who is going through everything we just talked about, it would be number one, just focus on the next step and surrender the rest. And number two, create more in my life so I do have more to my life than just business. Maybe something like that.
You don't want your passion to become your prison. And a lot of times, like, your passion, your business, and what you feel called to do, if it's all that you do, it's now your prison that can be a parasite sucking the life out of you, where nothing else exists other than this parasite. That's a mistake that a lot of business owners make because, yeah, you feel the pressure of this is your baby and people are depending on you. And if I don't make this work, people are going to lose their jobs and people are going to suffer, like just overwhelm of that pressure. But if you really think about life, what kind of life do you want to live? Like, what is that story where the exercise I give people is, let's just say you're at the end of your days, you're laying in the bed, about to pass on, you're surrounded by everyone you love. Everybody you've ever loved and had a relationship with is surrounding you in that moment. And the youngest person in the room looks at you and says, hey, tell me about your life. In that moment, what story would you want to tell? What story would you tell and feel so much pride, fulfillment, and joy by telling? If we really disconnect from our, earthly wants and our validations and our scared voids and really think about that story, okay, now I just need to reverse engineer my life to get there. What do I need to do? What is that next step I need to take today that aligns with that person?
That is the deepest question I've ever heard. I wouldn't even know where to start to answer that because all I could give you is superficial in business.
And we would both agree that that is not a good thing.
Yeah. I've never heard it either passion becoming a prison. I've never heard it said that way before. And it is so spot on because if that's the case for me, I have Stockholm syndrome because I love it and I don't want to leave it. If I leave that prison, it's a dark place. That prison is a safety cage for me.
Yes, that is a lot of the things that we do in this world. We do build them in to provide us a sense of control and safety. And when I look at that, there is a certain component to that. When we look at even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, yes, that is the steps of the hierarchy of needs, is you've got to be able to eat. You got to have a shelter. And then you can start moving up the ladder. So there is a component to that. Even as a godly man, I am called to provide and protect. And the worst thing I can do in my life is not to provide for my family. So it is biblical for me to do that. The problem is once we get past that, we start putting in all these other layers instead of okay, we're good. All right, now really what's important? I can eat, I have food, I have shelter. Now really what's important in my life? The problem is we take that comfort and hedonic adaptation sets in, where instead of food and shelter being our comfort, no, it's 6 figures in my bank account. It's, multiple commas in my retirement account. It is my safety is not a transportation that gets me where I need to go. It's now a Mercedes. That's my comfort. It's all these layers that we put on top of that instead of really sitting back and saying, no, actually, what's important in life? What's really going to make my life meaningful and deeply, deeply fulfilling instead of all these perceived comforts that are way past actual comforts.
Yeah. I'm definitely, I think, stuck in the place of just wanting to build and build and build. And I tell myself, like, maybe it's just a phase, but I don't see the end to that. So I can play myself all I want and say it's a phase, but I don't have a plan for the end of the phase, and I don't see an end to it, and I don't necessarily want an end to it. And that's what makes it dangerous.
Well, there's a
I
place
guess.
for that, though. And in building a business, normally about the first 5 years, you're in that like launch phase of a business where you're in a higher stress state. You're in this state of, I've got to make things happen. I got to force this to get done because you've got to build this, because if you don't build it, you don't eat. So there is a phase of that. The problem is that monster that it takes to build a business, we forget to put back in its cage after we've got a good business. And now that monster now runs the rest of our life instead of like, okay, I'm good now. Now, actually, what do I want to create? Not, I have to survive. What do I actually want to create here? And it's a completely different way of looking at how you make decisions, because one is out of scarcity. But a lot of times we solve that scarcity problem, yet we still keep that mentality, and we wonder why we don't make the best long-term strategic decisions. Instead of saying, okay, we're good. I have a stable business. It's paying all the bills. I'm making money. My people are paid. We've got a little bit of reserve. Like, we're good. I can stop being the monster needed to create this business. Now, actually, what do I want to create? And not necessarily what I want to create, but what kind of life do I want to live? And how do I create something that sustains that life?
Yeah. I'm going to tie it back into the word and just giving myself grace. Give myself grace to just build, and then I'll just let God take over from there.
That's your job.
So it
That's your
ties
job.
back into the Christ-centered identity as well, which is like, if I just see myself the way that God sees me, there's nothing to worry about. It's like, chill out, dude.
100%. Like I said, Jesus, his dad told him he was proud of him before he did one miracle.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he was, getting baptized and who he was in that moment without all the accolades. Hey, son, proud of you.
Mm, yeah. It always ties back to that. It's like we overcomplicate it, but no. What's a word that you'd like to leave people with? We totally like went down the can of worms like mid rapid fire, but I'm curious, what's something that if there's just one takeaway you want people to take on this?
Yeah. The one thing that I wish more people would do is honestly just live in the present. Your past happened, and it's okay. You're still here. You're still here to fight another day, and it made you who you are. The future, it'll be there tomorrow, and the worries of today will be there. That is directly from the scripture. So just live today. Yes, you should be building for the future. You should have goals, and you should be aligned with what you're ultimately trying to do in this world. But living in alignment with that, if you can just live today and make the best of today. You heard me say it earlier. I want to die empty. And what that basically means is I just want to give this life everything that I possibly can. I want to be the best steward possible of everything that God has given me. I want to get there one day and said, well done, my faithful servant. But I also want to feel that way every day. I get so much peace out of laying my head on my pillow every night, knowing that I did the best I could today. And tomorrow's going to take care of itself. I just got to focus on today. And today I've got to do the best I can And one of my favorite quotes around that, that I find so much just like peace around, Les Brown said, all you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is enough. And that enough part is what I find peace in, is because that's all I can do. All I can do is give this life 100%. And I've got to stop focusing on the anxiety or the depression of the past. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to give everything I can until I go to sleep tonight. And that's enough. And I'll just do the same tomorrow. And if I do that, it'll all work out. And I'm okay with that.
We all need that reminder that all we need to do today is give today everything we've got, and that is enough. Gosh, imagine the rate of depression would just decrease if everyone just thought this way. Gosh, we should all just get it tattooed on us or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's been said so much, so it's almost become cliche. Be
yeah.
present. But there's so much power in that. And even like it's biblical too. And
Mm-hmm.
God tells us like, hey, just do what you need to do today. And then everything else will be okay. Here's a lamp to your feet. Just take that next step and everything else will take care of itself. I promise you, because God's character is infallible. It is unchanging and will never be anything other than what he says it is. God cannot lie. He's honest. And he said he's going to work everything out for your good. You just have to trust that and just take the next best action and do that over and over again. And just trust that next best action is leading you to, in Greek, teleon ergon, which is God's perfect work, his masterpiece. And that's what he's created for you. So if you just follow the plan, teleon ergon will happen. And you can trust that because God is always of truth.
Yes. Gosh, Robby, thank you so much for taking your expertise and digesting it and making it so practical and just really easy to apply way for me and for all the listeners too. I think it's going to be really impactful for people. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And you can tell I get a little bit passionate about this because not only do I do this in a professional capacity, but I also have a men's ministry where I do a lot of this work. And I know the pain that I've been through in my life, and I'm constantly reminded of the pain that people are in right now. So I just get really, really passionate about wanting to help people through that pain. And it's Socrates' quote around, we suffer far worse in imagination than we do in real life. And a lot of that pain is stories we're creating and awareness and perceptions. So I get really, really passionate about just wanting to help people as much as possible, knowing I'm on this journey with them and I'm in the fight with them because I'm fighting most of the same battles that everyone else is. And that's where my grace and my mercy comes from with people, is just because I'm fighting the same stuff right in the trenches with them, and together we can get through this. You're not gonna get through it by yourself, but if we work together, stay aligned with a perfect God, we can get through this.
I love how humble you are too. I really appreciate that. I feel like we are drowning in online coaches who just exalt themselves and are like, you should buy from me because I know everything and I'm the best thing since sliced bread. I like that you bring it back to the source all the time.
The more you know nothing, is I think also a Socrates quote that
Heck
is
yeah.
absolutely true. The more I work in this world and the more I help people and just talk to people, the more I learn about myself too. And it's deeply humbling to have a lot of experiences where it shows you how, messed up you are, and that we're all messed up together, but that's what brings us together. And that's the beauty of life. And there's also hope in that. There's also hope knowing we're not alone.
Absolutely. Where can people find you if they're interested in working with you? Yeah, how can they find you?
Yeah, so Robby D'Angelo on all the socials, and website is robbydangelo.com. Or if you're a man looking for more biblical based coaching, undeniableman.com is where my men go to really learn more about what that looks like. But yeah, I'd love to have a conversation. So just Robby D'Angelo on all the socials, and I'll be there. I'd be ecstatic to have a conversation with you.
Amazing. Yes, I love that because you were able to help me get some unlocks. And so anyone else who wants to chat with you or even work with you, I'll put all those links in the description. So your socials and your website directly for men to go to as well.